Some of the things that we were talking about earlier today at the luncheon was different things that she's been a part of, and it's amazing to hear different people coming from other communities in different areas where she's talking about how one of her main goals is to help provide other Native Americans and women with the same opportunities that she's had in her career and making sure that those traditional values coexist. So I'm more than happy to introduce this year's 2018 Science and Excellence Banquet keynote speaker, Tara Astigarraga.
All right, so thank you to Kiana for a great intro, and I just wanted to say thank you for Jill for having me come into the U of A, for allowing me to be your keynote speaker tonight. I love Tucson. I love the U of A. As they mentioned, I'm an alumna from the U of A. I graduated in 2001, so bear down, go U of A, and good to be back. I grew up in Phoenix, went to the U of A, and as I mentioned, in 2001 graduated with a dual major of Spanish linguistics and communication. So naturally, I'm here tonight to talk to you about my career in engineering. So I was a senior at the U of A with fuzzy, at best, aspirations as to what I was going to do after graduating. I was thinking something in bilingual education, maybe social work, something in business. It was all up in the air. And then I got an email one day through the NASA, the Native American Student Affairs listserv, saying IBM is looking to hire diverse candidates. If you're interested, please apply. So I sent in a resume thinking, you know, IBM's this huge company. They have to have things that they're looking for in marketing, communications, anything in those fields. So I sent in my resume, was excited to get started, and got told, we're sending you out to Albuquerque, New Mexico for some interviews. So I got on a plane, took the free trip to New Mexico, was super excited to go kind of visit. And when I got there, I was shocked to find out that it was engineering recruitment. So they had 12 interviews set up for me. All 12 were looking for engineers to fill engineering positions. So I thought, I'm here. This will be an experience. And I went on the interviews. So at the end of the day, I had 12 no's from 12 managers. And later that evening, one of the managers approached me and said, you know, I don't think you're right for the position I was interviewing you for, but I think we could find something for you. Would you still like to come to IBM Tucson and do an internship? So I, of course, said yes. With that, the one converted no from a lady named Rita, who was just a great person and decided to take a shot on me, turned into a 16-plus year career at IBM so far. So. So I started IBM in a position that was created called co-op coordinator. My job was to plan activities, make sure that the interns were happy, that they were enjoying Tucson, to make sure that their jobs were fulfilling, that their management and them had good open communication. Basically, my job was to coordinate others' experiences at IBM. And it was a good job, it was fun. But I was lucky to have a team of incredible women around me in that position who pushed me and had a broader vision for where I would end up in my time at IBM. So one of them actually is here today. So Heather, thank you. So these ladies in the first year of my career at IBM forced me to think outside of what I thought I could do and to challenge myself to go further. So the first assignment that they gave me was, you know, I understand that you don't have a background in this, but we need somebody to take on the department website and start to add new content, update it, and modernize the way that we're doing web page development. So I said, okay. And basically that night started Googling, how do I make a web page? So I did a lot of find and replace type learning. I would find the content that needed to be updated, open the large unstructured text file that they provided me with source code, and would find exactly what it is that I needed to change. As I slowly got comfortable, that started to change, and I became more and more skilled at web page development. So at that point, I considered myself an accidental web page developer. So it was just brute force learning and determination. And at that, there was one kind of odd discovery that I had at that point, which is I love engineering. And specifically at that point, I love software engineering. It was interesting. It wasn't something I had ever thought about doing, or I had never known an engineer. It wasn't a career path I even knew was an option, but it was something I accidentally found and absolutely loved. So I moved to another area to finish my co-op. At this point, I was working with the capital assets and software team, and I had been moved to be a software coordinator. So I was no longer coordinating people, I was now coordinating software. So my job was to make sure that everybody had the software and licenses that they needed. With that came the responsibility of, and it's all in this legacy database that needs to be migrated and a new user interface built. So it was a role that I could do with a challenge that I was now up to taking. So I started again, how do I make a database? And I quickly kind of learned, at that point it was Lotus script and JavaScript, and started kind of getting familiar with a lot of the technologies. And the value I was able to show in that role led to IBM offering me a full-time job as a software engineer. So I took that job and had then become the accidental web page developer, the accidental database developer. And as I continued to grow my skills, I started to leave off the word accidental and was excited to be a developer and a software engineer. And that was a big step for me, because I had finally got over the they made a mistake, I don't belong here phase, and started to embrace the fact that I can do this, and this could be something that I can do as a career. So I decided at that point it was a career-long goal to stay in the field of engineering. And I went back to school and got my master's in computer and information systems just 3 months after my first daughter was born. So it was a busy time, but it was a fun time. And at that point, I had moved into a growth assignment within IBM. So they had paired me up with one of it's called a distinguished engineer. It's one of the highest ranked engineers within the company. And my job for 1 year was to shadow him and learn everything I could. So it was an amazing opportunity that led to worldwide travel and fire hose learning, as I called it. Everything was new. It was coming at me fast, and I took in as much as I could. And one of the things that happened during that assignment was I filed my first patent, which for me was a big deal and something that I was super proud of. After that assignment, I moved into systems test, I did hardware test, I did protocol test. I developed very deep expertise in storage and networking protocols and started to teach classes inside IBM and in the industry. So at that point, I feel like I was coming into my own and realizing the different opportunities that are there. After that, I went into full solution stack testing, and then came another 1-year growth assignment. So this time, they had moved me to the corporate branch of IBM to work with the top technical leaders across IBM to find out what's next, what's coming, and how do we get ahead of it as a company. So on a monthly basis, I was creating content, doing research, and creating information and reports for the CEO of IBM as well as the top technical leaders. So the amount of insight that I got during that 1 year was amazing. And I took that and carried it in and moved to the IBM research team where I am today. So I spent about a year doing open source network development. And my current job is I'm a blockchain solutions architect and developer, working with a lot of our kind of clients as well as partners to build enterprise blockchain-based billing solutions. So that's the quick rundown of the career. But in my 16 years, I worked on a very diverse set of projects within IBM, but a few patterns kept emerging. So the first one was I was consistently asked to lead the projects that I was working in, and I was consistently asked that when I was engaged in these projects, anytime there was a chance to present to customers, business teams, or anything, to take on those assignments. And I realized that a lot of that was because of my background. So while I wouldn't go as far as to say that every engineer should have a major in communications, I would say that having a background in communication, having the Spanish linguistics, having the ability to communicate with a diverse set of audiences was very important and something that helped me. So being a solid engineer is great, but being a solid engineer who understands how to explain what you're working on to business people is something that really can set you apart. So that is kind of one of the challenges that I would put out is, as you're working on projects when you enter the workforce, don't just take a task that's assigned to you and implement it as it was written. Make sure that you understand, what am I building? Who will be using this, and why is it valuable? Because having that understanding helps you not only communicate that better, but helps you to build something that in the end is going to be what the users need and is useful. The other theme was just-in-time education and continued learning. So we all are getting backgrounds, and we get to the point where we have the education that we need for our given roles. But especially in the IT industry and in STEM in general, the industry and the technologies and what people are working on is changing so rapidly that it's an essential skill to learn how to learn. I call it just-in-time learning, making sure that you're able to get the knowledge that you need and quickly ramp up your skills for any project that you're asked to work on. So whether it's, I'm starting this new class, it's in a completely foreign language, how do I learn it quickly? Or I've always been working in an area of storage solutions and now I need to work in networking. Or I've always worked at the low levels of networking and now I'm being asked to build applications. So how do you take the background that you have and the things that you've learned and learn how to transition those quickly? The other thing that I wanted to talk about today was diversity in STEM. So Jill made some very good comments in the opening as to the importance of diversity. My time at IBM, I have been surrounded by very diverse teams. My current team that I'm working on, I have employees and people that I collaborate with across the US, the UK, India, China, Argentina. We're a very kind of diverse and represented team, which brings both challenges and strengths. Challenges primarily being time zones, but the strengths is we're all working together towards a common goal, but with very different perspectives that we're bringing to the table. And diversity is a continual struggle across all areas of STEM. But I think I would say that the importance is ever increasing, especially as we start to rely on artificial intelligence and machine learning to make some of the critical decisions in our society. So an intelligent computer is only as well-rounded as the people who teach it. If you think about that and some of the implications that it can have, I was reading an article in Wired magazine. It was talking about facial recognition technologies and how the fact that facial recognition technologies for white men was amazing, within less than 1% accuracy. I think it was 0.03. So the fact that they were able to take that technology and do such wonderful things with it for white men was good. But then they started to look at the other areas. And black women, not so much. So the statistics on how often they were able to properly recognize different minorities, different areas, and even women, the statistics on those started going down. And some of the reasons that they're looking at is the skewed accuracy looks to be due to underrepresentation of darker skin tones in the training data used to create the face-to-face analysis and algorithms. So this is the data that we had, the people that were training it were not diverse enough to create a technology that can be used efficiently for everybody. If you start to think about some of the implications and unconscious biasness that we can introduce into training sets for key technologies, and then you start to think about how these technologies are going to be used, you realize the importance of making sure that the right people and a diverse set of people are training these systems as we move forward. Think about things like AI in recruitment. AI could be amazing for recruitment. It could look for the best candidates across skill sets regardless of any unconscious bias that interviews currently hold. However, if the people training the AI for recruitment tools are introducing bias of, I expect them to have everything that I have, and those people have had a certain path in life or a certain set of criteria that they're looking for, again, you're training the algorithms, you're training the systems, and you're training the solutions that we're building to be created with bias. Other things to look at is AI in medical diagnosis and treatment recommendations. If the patients that are used in the training data aren't diverse, if we're using certain populations of people or certain populations of data, then the treatments recommended are only going to be as good as the training set it was used. So again, diversity in STEM. And finally, they're starting to use AI in a lot of reviews for things like bank loans, mortgage loans. Same problems, same solution, diversity in STEM. So the other thing I wanted to cover tonight was a little bit about innovation in IP. I think this is another very important area. As I mentioned, early in my career, I was challenged to solve a problem that I had verbalized. So basically, I was sitting at dinner one night with my mentor and complaining about the fact that the flash drive that I had died, and things that I needed were on that drive. And why is it that couldn't have pre-warned me? Or I said, why don't we have the technology to understand when these things are about to fail? So I was verbalizing my complaints, and instead of him saying, yeah, you're right, and moving on to the next topic, he said, what are you going to do about it? And at that moment, I kind of thought, that's not my area of expertise. Why would I do something about it? I don't work in flash technology. But that challenge was kind of poignant in that I understood that I am an engineer. I can do something about these things. So I went home, started learning, started looking at how do flash drives work, found out that there's a finite set of reads and writes that each drive can typically do, that the manufacturer of these devices has this information, that it's published in some unknown location. If you want to actually look and figure it out, you can. And that certain things like a write is more intensive than a read, that a power on, it basically plugging in and unplugging the device itself also wears down the flash drive. And so putting these things together, I realized we have the information. If we can just have some sort of a mechanism to track, there's a cache, a file, a something that's used to say this is the number of reads, write operations that's been performed on a given device. Add a LED on top, green, yellow, red. So you're in the green, you're only 20% utilized. You're now at 60%, it's yellow. Now you're at 90%, you might want to stop using this device. So a simple idea that I would have never thought of, I would have never pursued, had somebody not challenged me and said, what are you going to do about it? So from that point, I started to think about things differently. And now at this point, I have 70 plus patents filed, 35 plus issued with others pending, and it's just a part of my life at this point. So I'm constantly listening for problem statements. I'm finding them all around me, and I'm now the person that's asking others as they're complaining to me, what are you going to do about it? And taking kind of the new hires, the people that have never done innovation, and teaching them how to think in this way is something that I love doing. So one of the things that I wanted to go through is train yourself to identify areas of innovation. There are certain problem statements that we normally say, and when you hear these problem statements, it's often you're identifying a problem that needs solved. So things like, I wish something would work like this, but it really doesn't. Things like, why is this so hard? Things like, it's 2018 and we still have to, insert statement. Whenever you catch yourself saying these things, think about what you could do to innovatively solve these problems. So and if it's an area outside of your comfort zone, outside of the areas that you normally work in, do a little research, figure out who you could collaborate with, start having those conversations, but push yourself to answer some of these questions. One of the things that I do, I have an ideas notebook where I jot down problem statements, and then when I have time, I go through and try to find innovative solutions. Or if I don't feel like jotting something down, or it's the middle of the night, or you just, I mean, innovation comes at weird times. So I'm known to call and leave myself voicemails with context of, this is what you were thinking, this is, why you were thinking it, this is what you should look into. And then when the time is right and you have time to deep dive into those areas, you can go back and try to think creatively. So again, just some lessons learned. Find and cherish good mentors. For this one, I think this is really important, especially with women in engineering. Finding strong mentors who are the right fit for you. If you have a mentor and it's something that's there on paper, but you're not really getting anything out of it, find another mentor. So find somebody who understands you, who gets you, who knows what your goals are, and who's authentic with you. Make sure that you're open with them. If they're telling you, I think it would be great for you to go in this direction, and you know that that's not what you want, be authentic, be open. And also be open in your asks of what you're trying to get out of the mentor relationship. The other thing, and then later in your career, be a mentor. So many people helped me on my path to where I am today. And I want to make sure that I'm helping others. I want to make sure that I'm reaching out, that I'm giving back, and that I'm providing others the opportunity to get into the field of engineering. And hopefully on a path that's a little more direct. The other thing is be well-rounded. So being able to bridge the worlds of business and technology, to provide innovative solutions that are solving real-world problems, to not build a technology for the sake of building it, but rather because you're building something to solve a problem that you care about. I think that is important. The other one is don't be afraid to fail. For me, this one was especially hard. As a woman, a perfectionist, getting into the field of engineering and realizing that I was going to fail and fail often was hard, and that was something hard to embrace. But I think with failure often comes growth, comes innovation, and comes a lot of lessons learned that you carry into your next project. So I would even say if you aren't failing, you probably aren't pushing yourself far enough. And then finally, get comfortable working outside your comfort zone. So embrace just-in-time learning. If you're in a job or a position where you know everything there is to know, you don't have to constantly seek information, and you're just comfortable doing what you're doing, it's time to expand. So it's time to look at related components or related areas that you can start to introduce into your work, or to find another role that's going to challenge you more. So I think that there's your comfort zone, there's the challenge zone, and then there's the danger zone of I know nothing in this area, I'm floundering, there's no way I should be working here. And I think understanding those three differences and when to work where is also important. So you don't want to spend too much time in your comfort zone, but if you're in your danger zone, you also want to make sure that you're surrounded by the right people, or that you find a way to get back into your challenge zone. So closing words, STEM needs you. We desperately need diversity, and we desperately need good candidates coming out. So please, if it's an area of interest, continue your pursuits. Always keep learning. Even if you think you have the education that you need for your current role, the world is changing, and 2 years from now, the thing that you're working on will probably be a legacy technology, and you need to learn something new. So always keep learning. Innovation matters, and sometimes it pays to take random leaps of faith. So thank you. I added some contact information if anybody wants to reach out. And again, I appreciate the chance to talk to you all today.